I want to talk about the actual tournament. You know, there's really it's a top 6 biggest event that we have in golf every year. 52 weeks in the year.
Yeah.
A lot of tournaments come and go. A lot of them we talk about low ratings, no juice, elevated events. So whenever there's not an elevated event, you get some pretty boring fields. If somebody especially blows people out, there's just not any real intrigue, whatever. This is it. This is about as good of a week as it gets. This golf course is so awesome. I think maybe it was 2 or 3 years ago now that we went down to the actual tournament for the first time. And I personally was just blown away. I know I've seen stadium courses before. There's a handful of them. They've kind of built them with the TPCs purposely. And they've done it here in Scottsdale. But it's still not as good as the stadium course and how efficient it is for viewing at TPC Sawgrass. I just can't get over how good it is. You can walk up to any hole with any group at any moment, and just the way that all the mounds are laid out to the perimeter of all the greens and the tee boxes, you could pretty much watch anybody play at any moment and just walk up and get yourself a pretty good viewing spot. And that's usually just not the case. We talk a lot about when you go to events, it's actually really, really hard to view and pay attention to golf at all when you go to golf events because there's just too much going on. It's laid out. The big names that you do want to see have all the crowds. You can't really get in there. TPC Sawgrass is spaced out just perfectly. It's usually nice weather. It looks like there's going to be some rain, but it's usually pretty warm, pretty sunny a lot of the days. People are having cocktails out there. Everybody's in a good mood. It's sort of like this early part of spring for a lot of folks. So they're starting to come out of their shell a little bit. And it's the highest, about the highest of stakes this damn tournament has had. I think Brandel's been arguing for like 25 years that this should just be a major championship. It's got the iconicness of the stretch of golf. I don't know that there really are many other courses that from just a pure shot value and entertainment value on a golf shot level that contends with this golf course. There's just not that many in the world. A lot of them, it just kind of looks like the same thing. It's cookie cutter. There's a guy on a tee box. There's a guy hitting an iron into a green. Cool. This one, the holes so well because it's here every year, yet it's also that elevated of an event. The holes are so unique. And when they come down that closing stretch, 16, 17, 18 are so iconic that it really does just get my juices kind of flowing thinking about watching that. You can watch any player. You go online, watching anybody navigate those 3 holes is just an absolute blast. So I really am very fired up for the players this week.
Yeah, the PGA Tour deserves credit for creating this event. Like we talk a lot about how do we create, whether it's TGL or Live or these other events that aren't as, they're just not as impactful or as meaningful. The PGA Tour deserves credit for creating something that is exactly that. Like I'm actually glad it's not a major because it shows that if you do it the right way, a tournament can become just as important on its own. Like the Tour Championship is a good example of it just feels empty. And I know they're trying to change it. We talked about it at a councilman meeting actually on how they're trying to change it to make it more interesting. But for the longest time, it was like, let's just throw a shit ton of money at this thing. And that's going to make it mean something. And you find out that that's actually not the case at all. What the PGA Tour has done with the players at TPC Sawgrass is create an event outside of the majors that feels just as big. Like if you win a players, that goes on your resume immediately. That's like, oh, has he won a players? How many has he won? Blah, blah, blah. Like that, they deserve a ton of credit for that. And again, I don't know exactly how they've done it. The fields are spectacular. It even has it's a big deal when John Rahm, who went to Live, he admitted he was sitting at home watching the tournament when Scotty was winning it, being like, man, this is a great tournament and I wish I was out there. That's when you got something. So it really is. And, we've gone for a couple of years now, like you alluded to. It's an incredible golf course. You do know every single hole. You know who's won it and who hasn't or who's come close. Like everybody talks about, not everybody. We talk about Kevin Kisner coming so close to winning it and Ricky coming through.
I can't believe he didn't win that.
It was, looking back now and how close we are with Kisner, I wish he would have won that. Ricky seems like a great guy, but we wanted Kevin Kisner to win that players. And dude, imagine.
We didn't even know we wanted him to win. We didn't even know.
I had no idea at the time. But imagine now if you every time we talked about Kevin Kisner on the show, and every time we talk about him blading it out of a bunker at TGL, and everybody's laughing, and he's a great guy on the broadcast, which is true. But you would have to say, but he won that Players, which was incredible. Like that
Players champion.
Right. So that's how big that tournament is outside of the majors. And I really, it's a testament to the PGA Tour. Nobody gives the PGA Tour credit anymore. And I understand why, because it's a fucking show and they really let a few things get too far out in front of them and they couldn't control it. But the players, they have done that correctly. 100%.
Yeah, I agree. They've nailed it. I'm trying to think about why, right? Like, why has it gotten to this point? And I really do think a huge part of it is the golf course. I really think the golf course adds so much to it. And maybe that's obvious to say, but like that golf course and the way that it's laid out and the way that it sort of crescendos is just so iconic. It builds so much drama, and then the clips that have come out over the years. Obviously, like the Tiger putt, Sergio hitting it in the water over and over again. There, Ricky and Kiz going like birdie for birdie for birdie on the 17th in the playoff. It's had so many iconic moments that have really built it up, and it's interesting. Like I've said a bunch of times, like Torrey Pines in the Farmers Insurance Open and Bay Hill and the Arnold Palmer, to me, always feel like huge events because Tiger used to always play them and always win them. That always stood out to me as like, why is this considered a huge event? Because Tiger didn't play that many events, and when he did, he would just win there. So I was like, oh, this event is very high prestige because Tiger Woods shows up and wins every year. That's amazing. Tiger doesn't even win at Sawgrass very often. I think he's won there twice ever. He won obviously the one in whenever that I think it was 01, which is when he had the better than most, and then he won the time in like 2013 when he had the drop on 14 that some folks were sketchy about, and then Sergio hit in the water. But like comparatively speaking, he's one of those other places like 8 times. He's only won a couple times, so it's not like Tiger has elevated this event that much. I mean, he had the better than most. It really has, been able to stand on its own as this iconic massive event that is clearly above the rest. And you kind of started out talking about it, but it's like people list majors that someone has won, and then they will add, oh yeah, and he won a Players Championship. That's like a very notable addition to any resume.